Where do you want to go? Home? This is your home. You're dead.
The term Jacob's Ladder is likely to summon up different images in your mind depending on who you are, be it a legendary Bible story, an intense piece of gym equipment, the grueling twisting staircase linking the northeast corner of Kings Park with the river in my home city of Perth, a piercing which we most certainly won't be talking about, a bizarre 2019 remake, or what we're looking at today, the 1990 classic directed by Adrian Lyne starring Tim Robbins. Nestling itself between the genres of horror, drama, and war, Jacob's Ladder tackles hugely pressing themes, especially for the early 90s, and beams in on the aftermath of the Vietnam War, following a traumatized soldier haunted by his dark, confusing past.
Man, relax, this is gonna be a little strong.
Our protagonist, Jacob Singer, guides us through this contorting plotline, himself a displaced and disillusioned Vietnam War veteran. He lives with his partner Jezebel, who showers him with equal amounts of affection and frustration, and has an ex-wife Sarah, who looks after their 2 children, their third having been lost to a car accident before the war, something that continues to haunt him.
Is this the one who died?
Oh, God. Sorry. Took me by surprise.
Opening with helicopters reminiscent of Apocalypse Now, Jacob's unit find themselves in the Mekong Delta in the midst of the Vietnam War, but during some downtime, chaos strikes, with many of the squad exhibiting erratic, unexplainable behavior, resulting in them splintering. Moments later, lost in the jungle, Jacob gets skewered by a bayonet, falling to the ground before waking up in a New York subway. Not exactly what you'd think would happen after being stabbed, but the subway feels bizarre. People are cold, the cars are empty, and Jacob even appears to see a tentacle extrude from a homeless man's clothing. It's fair to say things are not quite right. Returning home, Jacob is clearly traumatized with memories of the day in Vietnam repeatedly erupting in his mind. But these distortions are not limited to his dreams. The real world seems to be distorting too, seeing Jacob chased down by a car housing similar demons as those he saw in the subway, prompting him to search for his doctor, an ex-squad mate who has, according to hospital files, never existed.
I need to see Dr. Carlson, please.
Carlson? Is he new here?
No, he's been here for years.
Not according to my charts. What was your name?
Singer, Jacob Singer.
I'm sorry, but there's no record of a Jacob Singer in our files.
This confusion continues at a party when Jacob gets his palm read by a mystic who tells him that his hand suggests that he's already dead. Laughing it off, he parties but is overcome by hallucinations that cause him to freak out. Back home, Jacob is struck by a soaring temperature, leading Jezebel to throw him into an ice-cold bath, an act which launches Jacob into an alternate reality with his family, one in which his youngest son, Gabe, is still alive. But before we can orient ourselves, we're back in the bathtub. Recovering slowly, Jacob begins researching demons, looking for answers. Fortunately for him, he's contacted by an old platoon mate, Paul, who attests to also seeing twisted realities and demonic figures, only for him to then be assassinated.
What a lucky day.
Attending Paul's wake, Jacob reunites with his old squad, all of whom claim to be witnessing the same visions. Suspecting a nefarious cause, they draw parallels between the suspicious deaths of members of their unit. They approach a lawyer for help, but after securing a case, Jacob's squad mates drop out, and he's informed that there were no government records to substantiate that he was ever in Vietnam.
Now, I don't know what kind of a fool you take me for, but you have used and abused me, sir.
Used you?
That's right, I checked with the Army's Bureau of Information. You never even went to Vietnam.
What's that supposed to mean?
His suspicions are then confirmed when he's bundled into a car and roughed up by 2 suited men. Unfortunately, as Jacob fights back, he falls from the car, resulting in him becoming paralyzed.
You poor, poor man.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry, Merry Christmas!
Wheeled into hospital, Jacob's hallucinations kick in again, and he begins witnessing horrors, before being informed by the doctor that he was already dead. Fortunately, he wakes back up in the real world and is visited by his wife before his angelic chiropractor Louis picks him up and miraculously cures him of his paralysis. While doing so, Louis speaks one of the most important and direct lines in the film.
If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth.
One that we're going to come back to in a moment. Now recovered, Jacob is contacted by Michael Newman, a therapist that worked with his old friend, who reveals that Jacob is on the right track. Newman reveals that Jacob's platoon was subject to a horrific test for a drug known as sLadder, of which they were not aware of, which increased their aggression. The army had essentially hoped to use sLadder to increase the effectiveness of soldiers. Instead, those that were dosed began to lose their minds. What followed was pure chaos, with the soldiers literally tearing each other apart. A piece of information which helps Jacob recall the face of the Allied soldier who had stabbed him in the jungle. Taking a cab quote-unquote home, Jacob arrives back to his old family house. To his surprise, Gabe is there to greet him and leads him up the stairs into the light. We're then transported back to reality, where Jacob has tragically died in a triage tent in Vietnam back in 1971.
What else did he say, Jake?
I'm going to hell. That's as straight as I can put it. And don't tell me that I'm crazy, because I know I'm not. They're coming after me.
He was scared. They're trying to get me, he said. Demons.
Did he say what they looked like?
Drawing its title from the book of Genesis, the phrase Jacob's Ladder refers to a ladder leading to heaven, allowing for ascension for those who can climb it. This ascensionist idea lies at the heart of the film, with the distorted realities we experience being a visual representation of Jacob's inability to let go of his worldly attachments. This is explicated by the chiropractor Louis, who quotes Meister Eckhart, a 14th century Christian mystic.
Eckhart saw hell too. He said the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. Your attachments, they burn them all away. But they're not punishing you, he said. They're freeing your soul.
This notion provides an alternate conception of what we all know as heaven and hell, instead framing hell as the place where all worldly attachments are burned away in order to free one's soul after death. Throughout the film, we see the visualization of such attachments being clung to by Jacob, from the endless re-emergence of his dead son Gabe and his ex-wife to the presence of Jezebel. Here it's worth noticing the religious names used within the film.
They're biblical names.
Well, personally, I never went for church names. What?
Where do you think Jezebel came from?
Most pressingly, the son Gabe, short for Gabriel, draws clear ties to the archangel Gabriel, who appears before prophets and provides an interface with the heavenly afterlife, exactly as Gabe does for Jacob throughout the film. More subtly, Jezebel's name is drawn from the Book of Kings, with the original Jezebel having caused the downfall of Israel, resulting in her becoming associated with the idea of false prophets. Again, something totally reflected in the film, with Jezebel, youthful, vibrant, and sexually open, appearing as a component of lust in Jacob's psyche, something suggested by the fact that, when Jacob wakes up in reality with his wife, he mentions Jezebel as a simple colleague from the post office, perhaps hinting to the concepts of repressed affection and lust, which are allowed to run rampant in his alternate reality.
The dream I was having. I was living with another woman.
You know who it was?
I don't want to know.
Jezebel from the post office.
And of course, Jacob also draws his name from the titular biblical Jacob, son of Isaac and Rebekah. Interestingly, looking behind the film's title, we're exposed to more biblical context, as the film was originally supposed to be called Dante's Inferno. This revelation locates Jacob as Dante, implying that the twisted world that Jacob inhabits within the film is perhaps purgatory, one where Jacob finds himself trapped until he can heed Louis' advice and let go.
Where do you want to go? Home? This is your home. You're dead.
I'm alive.
Then what are you doing here?
This isn't happening.
What is happening?
In addition to the film's religious parallels and imagery, the story is grounded in the dark reality of wartime PTSD. But beyond shell shock, Jacob's Ladder touches on something incredibly real, made explicit in the black and white text at the end of the film, claiming that the hallucinogenic drug BZ was used in experiments on soldiers during the Vietnam War.
Even a bad trip, and believe me, I've had my share, did not compare to the fury of the ladder. That's what they called it. A fast trip, straight down the ladder, right to the primal fear, right to the base anger.
Originally designated as TK before being standardized as BZ, since its creation in 1951, the US Army showed significant interest in deploying it as a chemical weapon. This saw the US military do extensive research on human volunteers who displayed incredibly disturbing mental states under its influence. Evidence of the horrific human trials of the drug at the Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland have slowly leaked out since the 1990s, the most potent account being from military scientist Dr. James Moore, who recalls accidentally being exposed to the compound, resulting in days of waking nightmares, not dissimilar to what Jacob experiences in the film. At the very same facility in Maryland, so-called military volunteers were exposed to a myriad of drugs, from BZ to lethal nerve gas. Back in 1975, it was suggested that a total of 6,940 servicemen had been involved in such experiments. However, the Government Accounting Office suggests that there have been far more victims. For many, symptoms continued, shifted, or worsened in the years to come.
We've been watching you for a long time. You and your friends, frightening people with foolish talk about the army and experiments. You're in over your head, Mr. Singer. Men drown that way.
From the psychological states of delirium, hallucination, and cognitive dysfunction, to the visible physiological effects of hypothermia he and his squad experience, the narrative of Jacob's Ladder finds itself based on some of the key symptoms of BZ. Through the harrowing yet captivating performance of Tim Robbins, Jacob's Ladder provides a fascinating window onto this debate, at once presenting a relatively universal tale of coming to terms with death, while simultaneously unearthing some dark truths regarding war, making it one of those rare films that will linger in your mind like a splinter, long after it's finished.